Good morning, everybody. John Stipple here for GAI Insights with the Gen AI News Briefing, rating your top news, essential, important, or optional, giving you time back in your day and maybe insight in your mind. We have lots going on here. Fantastic new stuff from Cohere around context-based retrieval. Got an interesting expose from the New York Times on how much money OpenAI is losing and much, much more. All right. Ankash, if you give us the first article, please.
So, John, so the first one that we have for today is around the liquid foundation models.
Yeah, we have an announcement here from our friends at Liquid AI over from MIT, talking about what fantastic new performance they have for their small to medium-sized models and just amazingly different memory absorption and so forth. So what do you think here, Luda?
I thought that this is very interesting. This is, you never know in this world where the innovation will come from. In this case, this is the reason they call it liquid is because they can almost like rearrange themselves in at the time of performance, at the time of runtime. So they're smaller and focused on the either very constraints environments with 1 billion parameter model or 1.3, and then a little bigger model on the edge, and a 40 billion parameter. It balances the size and the output quality. So very specialized model, and they're making it happen through memory efficiency and sort of what is fed into context window. I thought that this is an important announcement, changing the landscape of LLMs yet another time. So I think, if not essential, but it's just a product announcement. It's early, so important for me.
Yes, Ankash, if you scroll down a little bit, just show one of the tables with model performance, and then the one farther down in terms of memory absorption. Yeah, and as I understand it, they have a different unit of analysis where they're sharing embeddings across targeted parts, so the amount of processing and memory necessary is much less. If you keep going down, Ankash, I think you'll see the graphics in terms of memory absorption and model size, and it's just it's more linear and less combinatorial. Right there, yeah, that one. So you see, those are different memory absorption on the left-hand side, output length on the right. I mean, on the X. Yeah, Paul, what do you think? Our friends at Liquid AI, we can't be prejudiced by.
No, yeah, we're not prejudiced. We certainly know the folks over there.
Any startup.
Yeah, I'm excited for the kind of hometown team here. I think two things. One, I'd love the story of how the initiated. Part of the story was Danielle Roos, C-Sales walking with, I forget the person who was studying how brains work in worms. And it's another example of biology kind of leading technology here. And there they really observe, once you intent, you kind of think differently. So this idea that the algorithm itself is changing is a very different way than the standard GPT where you have one algorithm, you just force more power behind it to get more output. So I think it's definitely very intriguing, very promising. I think it's important I agree with Lita, it's important just for the AI leader to understand that transformational ideas continue to be bubbling on the edge, and we may see a standard order of magnitude improvements in some of these things within even 12 to 18 months.
All right, important it is. I weigh in for all those reasons on important as well. Ankash, next. OpenAI.
Ankash, you must be on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was speaking on mute. So this one is around OpenAI and how it is growing fast and burning through piles of money.
Yeah, very interesting. They're little over $3 billion in revenue. They think they're burning $5 billion, and then Thrive Capital's got an interesting place there. There's quite a crew in there. You've got Jared Kushner. You've got Nitin Noria, the guy who just retired as dean of the Harvard Business School. You got interesting partners at Thrive Capital. So it's not. That's not. I'm sorry. It's Jared Kushner's brother. I think Jacob or Jason Kushner. Is that Thrive? Anyway, what do you think here? Let's see who's up on this one. Is it me or you, Paul? I think it's you, Paul.
Actually, well, one, I'm so frustrated with OpenAI for having so much of a shit show over there. 20 executives leaving. We talked about that earlier this week here. I think this is important from an AI leader to understand that, the economics of this are material. So 3.7 a billion in revenue. I think it's 5.6 or 5 billion plus in cash loss. So it's going the right direction. We're already seeing rumors that they're going to start raising the premium from $20 a month over time to $44 a month on the retail side. And I think it just shows these things right now are very capital intensive. And I think from an AI leader standpoint, you really do need to think through as you move into production and as you start scaling for all your employees, what is your kind of hosting and large language model and total cost of ownership architecture in the next 3 or 4 years? And cost is a player. So important,
I thought it was really interesting. I'm really, as we work on our total cost of ownership model, I'm really curious about whether or not they'll be able to get $44 a month with all the competitors that are going to be coming along. And, and so if I were Thrive, they led the round with, I think, 750 million. And anyway, my concern would be, can they get the price in the marketplace over time?
And look what's happening. So their model right now is they don't have premise. It's all centralized on the mothership here. Apple's backed out of this participating in this financing. Apple's going to have on-device models. We just did a story on the device model. And I think one interesting question is, 2 to 3 years from now, what % of those token calls are going to be coming from on-device smartphones versus centralized mega servers?
Yeah, very interesting. And we'll talk more about that with Octo, Nvidia's, purchase of Octo. That is so, as I understand it, a orchestration layer, right?
Yeah.
And optimizing the models. What do you think, Luda? We're headed toward important.
So, I guess important. I
say it so enthusiastically.
I would put it on.
I asked my wife, "How are you doing?" Oh, good.
It's something that we know this is happening. This article gives a lot of financial data about the performance, about potential new round. So, Paul, I'm also frustrated because I think they're doing it to themselves. From the investor perspective, if you've invested mega money into this company and then you don't get the discount on this round to participate, so why are they doing it? They probably have a reason, or they certainly have a reason, but they're frustrating their own investors. This is nuts, right? So it's. I think rating every announcement important. I think we shouldn't. That's why I would say optional. But I understand this is a fundamental core block of the LLMs. So.
Yeah, I think with the stats, everyone's probably going to get an all-important data. Luda, when it comes to their investors, my son once did this to me when he was a kid. He said, "You know what this is, Dad?" I said, "No." He said, "It's a really tiny violin giving tiny, tiny amounts of concern for you." And when you come to their, it's like, how much do I worry about Thrive? And, those guys, forget it. They're whatever. They're fully grown adults going in with eyes wide open. I have no sympathy for the sharks. Okay. All right. When their livers get eaten by the whales. All right. Important it is.
The next one comes from Governor Newsom about the SB 1047 bill.
Yeah, so Newsom, along with Nancy Pelosi, don't like this bill. And one of the big reasons they say is, hey, look, it has to do with the fact that, if people get harm in harmful environments, the developers still going to be held accountable. And I think that's a really interesting question. A number of people in Silicon Valley, Jan LeCun and others, did not like this bill because of its holding the developers accountable. And they would say in an area where two things are a problem, as I remember the critiques. One is that who gets to decide, in terms of how bad harm is. And the second is the developers have no control over deployment. So if their models end up doing, nasty things in nasty environments, they may be accountable. Hate to do this to you, Luda. I was going to give it important, not essential, but I think people need to. Well, where are you on this?
Yeah, it is important actually, John, because a lot of people are watching this bill, even though it's a state bill, but it is, there's a lot of discussion about it, and people were hoping that it wouldn't go through. Yeah, so it's important to know for the executives.
All right, we got the important, Paul. You there? You going essential? You going to the Scylla of essential or the Caribbean?
We need our Tim back. We've got so much grade inflation for the last 2 weeks with this.
No, that's not true. We can go back and look. So I bet that's not true.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I think it's important to follow it. I mean, the EU continues to bubble forward. This is regulations clearly come in some shape or form.
Yeah.
And I think it's important at a high level to monitor, particularly as I think firms move, as we talked earlier, they're moving from, just get a pilot and 90-day thinking to what is our 2 to 3 year strategy and the stuff here. And that will be impacted by regulation.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. You said, Luda, it's only a state thing, but when you think about, where this stuff's been invented and, where most of the models have been built, it's all within, 20 square miles. It's amazing. Amazing how concentrated it's been. All right. Akash, we're giving this the big eye.
Great. So the next one comes from Anthropic, and it talks about contextual retrieval. We are a little late to this article, but seems like a really interesting one.
Yeah, contextual retrieval. Interesting, kind of using the model to re-rank the chunks that then they vectorize. It's fascinating. It seems to be much more accurate. What I thought was kind of cool in the description was how it takes advantage of exact match algorithms, which RAG does not, even though that gives you the context. So what do you think, Luda?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting technique. I would rate it as important, Paul.
I love it.
Because it changes, it puts RAG at a different level. The problem I see is there's a lot of work on training these models in addition to RAG.
Yeah.
So you have to put chunks together. You have to think through how you work with these chunks, right? So you have to give it examples, but you are working at meta level somewhat, not at the token level. So as a result, if you do a good job, and then there's some reasoning in what you feed to the model, and if you do all of those things right, you get 67% accuracy in retrieval. So additional. So it's actually quite a bit additional accuracy versus the regular tokens. So I think it's important to know.
I think it's so fascinating. I do too. I think it's so fascinating. I was a young doctoral student when I met Marvin Minsky over at MIT, and he has this fantastic book, which I think I mentioned before, called The Society of Mind, where he talks about when we think about designing computers that think, we ought to think about the human mind as a set of distinct processors that have different activities. And every time we see the multiple experts, or this one here, where you have a kind of chain of thought reasoning with different kinds of algorithms to set up the proper semantics so that things will be found more accurately and faster. I keep thinking back to, Minsky's original thing about the Society of Mind. I mean, all of these, I don't know about all, it seems to me the vast majority of the advancements have to do with this kind of new, either multiple experts, chain of thought reasoning with different kinds of algorithms. And, and then I love the tone of the Cohere folks, because they're, or the Anthropic folks, we tried, full context, didn't work as well, that's why we did the pre-processing. It's just, they're very, what's the word I'm looking for? Conversational about what they're learning and how they're learning, which I really appreciate.
Very good. Ankash, if you can scroll down to the graphic where it says combined, the pre-processing and runtime, go, right here.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe.
I think that's it. That's the second one. That's where it talks about. Go ahead.
See, I think it is go down. Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at.
Okay.
So see, it's where the star is, you do the pre-training. So they've developed a little prompt understanding, putting stuff into chunkings, right, into chunks, and then working with them. So with a star here, and then there is this is where the query goes in, and this is the second technique, the ranking of this of the chunks, and then you feed to the model the results of this ranking, and as a result, the overall quality improves dramatically. So that's an interesting, structure. It's completely different structure.
Yeah, just fascinating, and just and breathtaking in terms of how quickly the performance is moving here. Accuracy, speed, size of model, energy consumed. I mean, every dimension of the models is dynamic right now. All right.
Well,
Sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I just want to footnote. I mean, I think the thing I like about this so much, it's reg based, and I think from a value standpoint, there's been such obsession in the industry with I call it the size of the motor, the LLM, how that's faster. And the reality is, most companies just want to use ChatGPT with their own data. And this is yet another implication that, you've got the car, which is the over application, you got LLM, which is the motor, but your data, the reg, and all this great innovation in it is really, really important for extracting value out of this. So it's just fabulous, this vector on reg innovation.
All right. We're getting important for our friends at Anthropic. All right. Ankash, Fujitsu.
Okay, the next one comes from Fujitsu, and Fujitsu has launched Takane, which is a large language model with the highest Japanese language proficiency in the world.
Yes, there we go. And also Fujitsu announcing a very secure environment that it sits in, so I think they can air gap whatever you want, in terms of, context, whether you're a bank and so forth. So let's see here, Paul, what do you think? Big Barney going on, Japanese Barney going across the stage here.
I had it as optional because it's an announcement. I do think it's very interesting. Cohere continues to be under the radar screen, and enterprise. This is another very focused effort on domain specific here, the Japanese language. But right now it's announcement and optional.
Paul, when you say under the radar, you mean an ingredient part of really pushing this organization forward?
Yeah, and that there's such breathlessness right now with the drama of OpenAI and Anthropic really taking most of the casual conversation. And these guys aren't loud marketers, but I think they're pragmatically. I mean, McKinsey used them for their Lilly global internal tools. So, I mean, they're a very credible thing. They came out of Toronto with Jeffrey Hinton. So it's certainly one to watch, and they continue, like a few others, be very focused on the enterprise and not getting confused and distracted by all this B2C developer stuff.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, I mean, Fujitsu is, got a massive service organization and so forth. I mean, they compete well with the Accentures and the Infosys of the world, and, obviously, massive organization, Zaibatsu, Kuretsu, just amazing. All right. So we're giving this the big O as a product announcement. Not a Barney O, but just a regular O. Okay. Last one, Ankash, Nvidia.
So this one from Nvidia is an interesting one, as they have acquired OctoAI.
Yeah, and OctoAI does this, fantastic kind of combination of model optimization and also the ability to change among models, so model orchestration. And the combination of those two things, are certainly on the minds of our AI leaders who are, have things in production, right? Because what more can you want than the ability to switch models and drive costs down? So because of that, there's also some discussion in the acquisition that Octo is going to figure out, and Nvidia is going to have to figure out, okay, how are we going to deal with Bedrock over at AWS and so forth, because now they're going into more direct competition with their customers. Nvidia is now going to more direct competition with their customers with this, but clearly wants to do full end-to-end AI stack for companies. So because of that, because of who Nvidia is, and Okta's already out there, I was going to give this an important or maybe an essential. I was kind of on the fence because our AI leader really should be aware of what Nvidia is doing here. Others?
Yeah, I would go important, John, for the simple reason that this is done but not done. I think they might have some challenges to overcome before it goes into full production, and so people in the enterprise will be a little careful whether they would settle on using OctoAI until the whole acquisition is done. But it is a very interesting move on Nvidia's part, because OctoAI focuses on developers that are not very hardware technical, but allows them to put these integrations very easily together. So that will help Nvidia quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, I think strategically it's so interesting because they make it easier for the customer, harder for the customer to leave their technology, easier for the customer to commoditize the next layer up, which I think is just brilliant.
Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, I think important is it's both for myself and I think all the AI leaders. We need to continue to use the proverbial baseball bat and stop thinking about Nvidia as a chip company. I mean, they've got more software developers and hardware developers here. They're clearly going vertical. Their market cap's bigger than the whole financial sector here. These guys are playing hard, and no, I don't see anything slowing them down. And I think this whole verticalization of the stack and this idea that you really do have your intelligence, particularly, John, as you and I've talked a lot about that automation of those high value cognitive pieces of work that I want to keep more control of, and I may want to have more in my firewall. This and Samba Nova, Inflection, and others are really an important part and alternative to the big cloud-based mega centers like OpenAI.
Yeah, boy, it's so interesting. I'm leaning toward essential. I mean, look, the AI leader should know this, right? And they should know that Octo is getting bought, and this is the biggest player with the most established orchestration layer, and right in the middle of I mean, just think about some of our clients. Wouldn't you want? I know I'm going to mention this to clients who are in production, period, and make sure they understand. There's no, you know what I mean? All right. So unfortunately, we're going to have to end this with an undemocratic way of doing this. We're going to call this essential. All right. To break through the sameness of the important. Ankash, could you give us a big tote, please?
Yes, John, coming right up.
All right. I think we have 4 I's, an O, and an E. Oh, I'm sorry. That's on me. Add to the stage. There we have important, liquid, open, growing fast, Newsom, introducing context retrieval, Fujitsu, optional, and Nvidia acquiring OctoAI as essential. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. A fair amount of important reading if you have time. 1 essential. Hope we saved you some time. Luda, any announcements? Ankash?
No, thank you.
Okay, everybody. Remember, click and subscribe, like us. Hope to see you tomorrow. Bye-bye now.